roommate and woman last week in a dorm. ABC's Alex Stone reports.
Newly obtained court documents show a history of conflict between the alleged killer, Nicholas Jordan, and his college roommates. They had been having issues with him smoking marijuana and cigarettes in their pod of dorms, and that he had allegedly threatened to kill 24-year-old Sam Knopp if he asked Jordan to take out the trash again. Knopp was one of the two victims killed.
Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average up on the day, while the NASDAQ has been about 20 points down. And our KSL weather, sunshine through the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time 101.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Adventure awaits in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center. Whether you're looking for a motorhome, fifth wheel, travel trailer, toy hauler, or folding trailer, Motorsportsland has hundreds of options to choose from. Our low-pressure advisors are here to help you find the RV you've been dreaming of. Motorsportsland invites you to any of our 3 locations in Mill Creek, Salt Lake City, or Spanish Fork to see a huge selection of premium RVs to fit any camping style and budget. We've also got an incredible selection of pre-owned and clearance-priced models to choose from. When you buy from Motorsportsland, you're supporting a local, family-owned business, and you get a hassle-free buying experience without the hidden fees and high-pressure tactics of the national RV chains. Find your next adventure in an RV from a Motorsportsland RV Center, and let us help you get away.
Let Motorsportsland help you get away.
Motorsportsland.com.
Imagine if you could track your credit score anytime without impacting your score. Or imagine if you could know before you apply for a loan how it might affect your credit score.
Well, you don't have to imagine it anymore because our friends at Utah Community Credit Union have done that. It's called the UCCU Credit Score Toolbox, and it's right on board their app.
You can take the building of your credit score into your own hands. All the things that you can do right there on the app, like, you can correct errors to your credit report right there and improve your credit score.
Well, they told us recently you can even simulate what will happen if you pay off a credit card or apply for a loan, how that might affect your credit score. I've never heard of anything like it.
Plus, you get a free monthly credit report that includes all the information that you'd find on your credit file.
The third tool in your credit arsenal is credit monitoring, and UCCU makes it happen. There's no new apps to download. The Credit Score Toolbox is right inside the UCCU mobile banking app.
Available now for free. UCCU. Love where you bank.
Senate Bill 210 is a medical emergency at the Utah legislature. Ophthalmologists and optometrists are not the same. Optometrists don't complete medical school, no hospital internship, and no surgical residency. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors with years of surgical training on real patients. Now, optometrists want to perform surgery using lasers on the only eyes you'll ever have. Optometrists are not medical doctors, yet they want Senate Bill 210 to suddenly make them surgeons. Does that make sense to you? Your state legislator can help stop this nonsense by voting no. It takes years of training to make a surgeon. No bill can ever change that. Your legislator can help stop this nonsense. Tell your legislator to keep Utah eyes safe.
Paid for by the Utah Ophthalmology Society.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
A crash in Weber County, southbound Washington Boulevard as 2nd Street, Harrisville Road moved to the right, and delays from construction, especially on the westbound side of Bangerter Highway from Redwood to 2700 West. Advanced Window Products, factory direct affordable windows. Call today, they're on their way. Financing available. Save now, pay later. AdvancedWindows.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, sunny and mild through the weekend. Highs near 60 on Sunday. Then a storm moves in Monday, and we could see snow in the valleys by Tuesday. Right now, we're at 48 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome to Inside Sources on a Friday. It's always a good chance to step back and look at some of the big news items of the week and maybe think again about what we think we know or what we think we believe. And we're going to do that in a little different way. We're not going to dive it directly into the news of the day right off the top. We're going to think again about thinking again, and we're going to step back at some of the things that kept me curious and some things that I learned this week. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
One of the great things about doing this every day with all of you is I get to learn from extraordinary people, amazing voices, great thinkers, great writers, great analysts, and I always come away having learned something new. And we did a lot of learning this week, at least in the space between my two ears. And so I want to go back to some of the things that really stood out to me this week, and hopefully some things that will give you something to think again about as you roll into your weekend. And I actually want to start with the life and legacy of Alexei Navalny. Of course, his tragic death last weekend has sparked conversations around the world as Vladimir Putin's brutal regime continues on here, taking out the life of a rival and a voice that was exposing a lot of the corruption inside of the Kremlin. And the amazing thing to me in looking at Navalny's life was he understood what he was fighting for. Not just who he was fighting against. You'll remember that after surviving a poison attempt, that he was getting ready to go back into Russia. And during an interview on CNN in 2020 with Christiane Amanpour, he was asked about the poisoning attempt and what his motivation would be and what he would expect going back into Russia.
Well, I don't think that I can have such a privilege being safe in Russia, but I have to go back because I don't want these, groups of killers exist in Russia. I don't want Putin be ruling of Russia. I don't want him being president. I don't want him being Tsar of Russia because, he's killing people. He's the reason why the whole country is degrading. He's the reason why people are so poor. We have 25 million people living below the poverty line, and the whole degradation of system, fortunately for me, including system of assassination of people, he's the reason of that, and I want to go back and try to change it.
I have to go back. I have to go back and try to change it. That was the courage of Alexei Navalny, and ultimately it did cost him his life. I thought it was interesting that during an award-winning documentary on his life, Alexei was asked what his message would be to the people of Russia if Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin did take his life. What would he say then?
My message for the situation when I'm killed is very simple: not give up.
Don't give up was really the message. He also had a written statement that was to be issued after he fully expected he would be killed at some point. And I think in a very illuminating way, he said, if they kill me, know that that means that we are strong and that they are afraid of how much power we actually have. And an important message to the people inside of Russia. I think we could apply that into so many different places, whether that's politically here in the U.S. or in our own neighborhoods. So often we sit back or we cower in the corner, or we're not willing to lean into some of those conversations because we are afraid. And sometimes we get attacked by people because they are afraid. And I think right now here in the United States, both political parties are afraid. And what they are afraid of is that the vast majority of the American people that fall somewhere from political left to political right in their belief and ideology are actually the majority of the country. And they don't want them to realize that they are the majority of the country. They want to think that this far left and far right shouting matches and weaponization of words and all of the political rancor and chaos there's nothing they can do about it. But that's what they want. And just as Alexei Navalny pointed out to his own people in Russia, that if they're coming after you, it is because you are powerful and you have power and you can change the course of the future. One of the other really illuminating conversations from this week, and one of those surprising ones. I always love it when I get those surprising looks behind the scene. It's something we try to do every day here on Inside Sources to give you some perspective. It's easy to turn people into caricatures of a political party or a religious group or a minority group or the opposition football team, whatever it may be. We often reduce people to those caricatures. Donna Brazile has been on the national stage for a long time. A leading Democrat, she was the Democratic National Committee woman. Of course, she ran Al Gore's presidential campaign against George W. Bush in 2000. She spoke at this event that we covered yesterday that took place at the National Cathedral. Of course, Governor Cox was involved with that, as well as Governor Moore, a Democrat from Maryland. But Donna Brazile shared an experience in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in her home state of Louisiana. And even though she was this big time, for so many years, the face of the Democratic Party and really a strategic thinker in the Democratic Party, that suddenly she developed a connection with George W. Bush. And so I want you to listen to this. This is just so worth coming back to. I've actually played this over several times myself, and I just chuckle at all the nuanced pieces of think again moments. When you think you know somebody, everything really changes. Take a listen.
And so I found myself in a position where I knew people in the Bush administration. And rather than go on national TV and offer criticisms, I went on national TV and I basically said, Mr. President, how can I help you? And I had no idea that for over 3 years I would sit in Bush White House more than I had ever sat in Bill Clinton's White House. I was a kid who could go to President Bush and say, we need to fix the levees and rebuild the schools and bring people back home. And to this day, he calls me one of the most expensive dates that ever came through the White House. And I call him my president. On the 10th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, I flew down to Louisiana on Air Force One. President Obama said, are you coming with me? I said, yes, sir. I'm going to start the morning off with you in the 9th Ward in downtown. And then I'm going to welcome President and Mrs. Bush to my hometown. And they came. Nobody booed. We played the music. The president did his best dance. And I look forward, if God allows me, during the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina next year, to bring both my presidents back home, because we've made a lot of progress.
To me, that is both inspired and inspiring from Donna Brazile. Her relationship that she developed with then President George W. Bush and President Barack Obama, and she calls both of them her president. That's worth thinking again about, and something we all ought to be thinking about, especially as we roll through 2024. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Guys, did you know your testosterone affects everything in your system, including how you feel and perform every day? Right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. Knowing your T levels is the first step in understanding if you have low T. Your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED. Maintaining an appropriate T level can change your whole life. Most men start to see changes in their hormone levels in their 30s. Experience and results matter. So what are you waiting for? Get your T levels checked today by local, experienced, and trusted men's health experts. They've helped thousands of men since 2011. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Call Revive today and schedule your free testosterone test, free exam, and free consultation. Call Revive Men's Health at 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
The nationally ranked Cougars are on a roll.
Foose dives low, wait, up, and good! Drops it over the 10 for 2.
Saturday, it's BYU, Kansas State.
It's out to Robinson, long three. Oh! He just made a 30-footer!
Pregame is Practice at 11 and tip-off at 12. Listen Saturday, BYU, Kansas State, on Utah's legacy home of Big 12 basketball and the BYU Cougars. KSL News Radio.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies, because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive, like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom! I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Grab your family and some gear and head to the 2024 Skijoring the Bear exhibition in Garden City on Friday, February 23rd. Bring your skis and join the race, or attend as a spectator to watch horses pull skiers through a course with jumps. Race divisions include Open, Novice, and Rookie, with buckles and cash prizes for the division winners. Everyone can enjoy food trucks, vendors, and more. Skijoring the Bear in Garden City, just west of Heritage Park. Helmets are required for skijoring, and you need to bring your own skis. Kids 10 to 12 are free. Great lodging deals can be found at bearlake.org. Attend this exhibition event on Friday, February 23rd to see or experience the excitement of skijoring. Visit skijoringthebear.com for more information. skijoringthebear.com.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared.
Prevent your child's next asthma attack. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many. Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
When Cynthia came to TurboTax, she had just launched her new side gig, a true crime podcast.
I'm a first-rate detective with a golden voice.
As her TurboTax expert, I made her second income count by guaranteeing 100% accurate filing and her maximum refund.
What did she do with that refund? Find out next week.
Switch to Intuit TurboTax and make your moves count. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees. Experts only available with TurboTax Live.
If you only have a 401k, you're not getting the most for retirement.
Wait, what?
Add a Robinhood IRA on top, then they'll boost it by 3%.
You can do that?
And if you transfer in any retirement account, you get 3% on top of that.
Is there a limit to the match?
No limit. Robinhood Gold gets you the biggest contribution match of any IRA on the market. Sign up for Robinhood Gold at Robinhood.com/boost by April 30th. Subscription fees apply.
Investing involves risk. 3% match requires gold for 1 year from first match. Must keep IRA for 5 years. Match on transfers subject to additional terms and conditions. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC.
Any Hour Services can help you make sure your furnace keeps you warm this winter. Whether you need a tune-up, a repair, or a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a bill meant to bring Major League Baseball to Utah is advancing through the legislature. Second, a man in the business of fixing old baseball gloves is trying to make sure kids who want to play can get one. And third, a conflict between college roommates led to murder in Colorado Springs. Right now, 48 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Welcome to our weekly Inside Sources, inside look at presidential politics. And we're actually going to do a double today. We can't fit it all into one segment of the show. For the next 30 minutes, we're going to dig in and get behind the scenes, the political campaigns, especially the presidential race, as we roll through 2024. And as we do this, of course, we've got big news coming on the Republican side out of South Carolina. That will be their primary tomorrow. We'll come to that in the next segment. But we're going to start on the Democratic side because it's President Biden's week. The administration has been very vocal in attempting to really take control of the narrative. A lot of things happening or not happening in Congress, whether it has to do with the southern border and immigration or whether it's funding for Ukraine and Israel. There are a host of things that are happening on that front. So let's start with President Joe Biden and his reelection bid. Very interesting. Of course, a little Utah connection today as well. Governors from across the country visiting the White House, their annual winter meeting. And, of course, our own governor, Spencer Cox, is not only in attendance, but he is the head of the National Governors Association. And the president welcomed the governors to the White House. That's always a unique moment when you have the leaders of the states who tend to get more things done and operate within budgets than our federal counterparts do. So the president welcomed all of them there to the White House. Of course, he touted some of the things that he had done, especially in terms of infrastructure and what that was meaning in the states of all of these governors from across the country.
We've been incredible partners. Governors know the measure of success isn't how many partisan points we score. It's did we fix the problem? We disagree on how to fix the problem many times. We're all here for one reason, to fix the problems, to get things done for families, for communities, for the country. I came to office when the pandemic was raging and the economy was reeling, but we've turned things around with your help. The American Rescue Plan provided $350 billion to state and local governments. The bipartisan infrastructure law made the most significant investment in our nation's infrastructure in history.
At the end of his remarks, President Biden actually gave a little shout out to Utah's governor for his leadership.
I appreciate Governor Cox's effort to make the mission of the NGA to get those of us who disagree with one another to listen to one another, to treat one another with a sense of dignity and respect. That's essential in the part of America. That's how we get things done. That's how democracy works when it works. It needs to be able to have that kind of exchange.
There's a nice shout out from President Biden. And again, Governor Cox taking the Utah model to Washington, D.C. We like to see that on a lot of different fronts. And clearly one of those moments today for sure. Looking at the rest of the presidential side of things in terms of the politics of it all, on Wednesday I actually spoke with Michael Stratford from Politico. He had been reporting on the latest efforts of the Biden administration to implement additional student loan forgiveness. And here's how he described it in the context both of administration but also re-election.
So what the administration did today, announced a first bucket of loan forgiveness for borrowers who are enrolled in their new loan repayment program. It's a more generous variation of what the federal government has offered for a long time, which are income-driven repayment programs. But under the Biden plan, borrowers have an easier path to getting their loans forgiven sooner, and they also face lower monthly payments than they did before.
So clearly some policy components that the president's trying to drive through. Also, not a bad re-election strategy in terms of a lot of those voters, most of them younger voters who are still carrying a lot of that student loan debt. And this particular bucket, as Michael Stratford from Politico described for us, these were people who were involved in this savings program, this loan repayment program, and had shown they have been doing their part for a number of years. So these are not just some freeloaders. These are people who are at least trying to pay those loans back. But always interesting in terms of what you do and then how you do it. And then, as is always the case in politics, who gets credit, which led to a really interesting component to all of this that got me thinking about Moana, as President Biden let everybody know that they're welcome. You're welcome. That was the message coming out of the White House, coming from the president, and even going directly to the email of about 153,000 Americans who the president was just letting them know, you're welcome. Your student loan is forgiven. And, of course, that music was from the Disney hit Moana, where the demigod was basically taking credit for everything, from the sun coming up to everything that's good in between. You're welcome. He was responsible, and the president was definitely taking a victory lap on that, but he wanted to make sure that everybody knew. Here's what the content of that email really composed of for all of those borrowers out there?
The first word is congratulations, and I'm paraphrasing now, but it's effectively thanks to the policies of my administration, you now have student debt relief, and it's signed by the president at the end of the email.
Now, it's not every day that you get an email from the President of the United States. And as Michael Stratford from Politico pointed out for us, it all started with, of course, the presidential seal at the top of the email, just in case you were wondering where it was really come from, and starting with those words, congratulations, and then continuing on with several different iterations of you're welcome. The reason you're getting this forgiveness for your student loan is due to President Biden being in the White House. And so that was an interesting strategy. And it's one that has been debated amongst the Democrats on a whole host of issues. So this is interesting political, that many on the Democratic side don't feel like the president has taken enough credit for things that he has been able to get done, infrastructure bills and so on. And so this was clearly a moment where the campaign said, if you're going to do this, there is a political benefit to this, and you better make sure everybody knows what you're doing and that it's happening because of you. Because otherwise it's one of those things that just kind of slides on by. And so the administration, of course, wanted to take some credit. So they did a very big shout out to themselves, kind of Moana style. The Rock Johnson, I believe, is the singer there. So The Rock helping along with the You're Welcome category there for the Biden presidential campaign. Of course, a host of other things happening on that front. We talked a little bit about the president going on TikTok during the Super Bowl, really launching his campaign there. That's another one that is high stakes, behind the scenes politics. It was less than a year ago that President Biden was among many who said we should ban TikTok in the United States. He was part of a growing chorus. People who were saying we need to have them sell this off. This cannot be a Chinese-owned and operated company here in the United States. It needs to be sold, or we need to be able to block it. They did take it off of all of the federal phones, any federal employees or federally issued phones. A lot of states have done that as well. And so how do you go from that leap of saying we should ban it altogether, or at minimum make sure it's not on any government phone anywhere, to the president not only signing up and getting his own account, but then launching to make sure a lot of people go there in the middle of the Super Bowl? And the answer is the big L word. It's lobbying. And TikTok lobbied well over $5 million worth of lobbying efforts inside the Beltway there in Washington, D.C., and ultimately they won out. They also did some very slick advertising across the country, including during the Super Bowl, talking about everybody who is on TikTok, from grandmas to priests and nuns and neighbors and everybody in between, all of the good things on TikTok. Not talking about any of the downside or who actually owns it or where your data may be going and how the Chinese government may be using that in their divisive campaign to make sure that the country stays divided. So all of those are behind-the-scenes look in terms of what's happening on the Democratic side of the aisle. We're going to stay with the conversation here in our behind-the-scenes looks, our inside sources look at inside the presidential race. We'll take a quick break for some bottom-of-the-hour news. And when we come back, Samuel Benson's going to join us. And we're going to take a deep dive look at South Carolina, what to expect tomorrow on the Republican side. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. Tony Arriaga is the owner of Beehive Gloves, and he's giving back by sponsoring some local softball players. KSL TV's Brianna Chavez reports.
Tony's goal is to help even more players, repurposing more gloves to give to different baseball leagues. This year, he's helping the Hunter Cypress Baseball League in West Valley City, alleviating some of the stress for parents that will go a long way.
I want to not only give back, but give the kids an idea of, hey, if he can do it, I can do it.
Arriaga says he's reminded how he started off with nothing and believes his story can help other athletes. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The Alabama Supreme Court decision that made fertilized embryos the legal equivalent of children is turning into a major campaign issue now. ABC's Stephen Portnoy has more.
The D.C.-based organization that works to elect Senate Republicans in tough statewide races is urging candidates to run as far from the Alabama decision as possible and to express support for IVF and oppose restrictions on it. A memo from the National Republican Senatorial Committee to GOP candidates nationwide says it's imperative that they align with the overwhelming support that surveys have shown for fertility treatments.
Your money at this moment. The Dow Jones average is up on the day now by 80 points. NASDAQ down by 61. And our KSL weather looks like a beautiful weekend followed by a storm moving in on Monday. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
Hey, it's time for you to go for the gold. Gold tier checking from Hercules First Federal Credit Union. It is a great way to get going with Hercules Credit Union. They give you all the things that you want and need in a checking account, including the ultimate in identity theft protection, cellular care coverage. You get all kinds of cash back rewards, full-service travel benefits, health and wellness savings, and much, much more. It's just one of the many ways that our friends at Hercules First Federal Credit Union take care of you and are committed to you. I was in their offices just last week, and it is all about community. They want to make sure you not only have the right opportunities, you have the right education so you can make the best financial decisions. Since 1946, they've been all about growing stronger together. You can find their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, Riverton, or Salt Lake City. Or as always with our friends at Hercules, you can just find them online anytime at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
Manuel Plumbing and Heating has been a trusted name in the Salt Lake area for over 100 years. Since 1920, we have provided plumbing, heating, and air conditioning services in our area. Hello, I'm Brian Jackson, fourth generation of our family-owned and operated business. We promise to provide honest service, competitive pricing, and the most knowledgeable plumbers, technicians, and sales staff around. The next time you're in need of any plumbing, heating, or air conditioning service or repairs, call the company you can trust. Call Manuel Plumbing and Heating today, 801-262-4671.
I'm Jason Walton. In business, I mentor hundreds of Utahns as they pursue their American dream. The same dream career politicians treat with contempt. They send our money to our enemies abroad while shortchanging our veterans at home. It's not right. They're letting drug cartels escort criminals and terrorists across our border. It's time to stand up. So I'm running for the United States Senate. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are still dealing with those orange barrels, but the delays are easing if you're traveling Bangerter Highway between 134th South and I-15. Crash-free, delay-free on your Valley freeways at this time. Shop, support, and sample local deliciousness during Park City Gallery Association's Chocolate Lovers Gallery Stroll this Friday, featuring 10 local chocolatiers surrounded by the most yummy art exhibits. Details, visit ParkCityGalleryAssociation.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, sunny and mild through the weekend with highs near 60 on Sunday. The storm moves in on Monday, and then we could see some snow in the valleys by Tuesday. Right now, 50 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
Well, every week, every Friday on Inside Sources, we give you the inside look at presidential politics. And there was so much to cover this week, we couldn't do it in a single segment. So we spent the first segment talking about President Biden and his re-election efforts and the things that he did this week to try to leverage and be best positioned now. And we're going to shift to the Republican side of the aisle, where it is election eve in South Carolina. And as we always look to when we're looking to the road on presidential politics, we go to Samuel Benson. Samuel is in North Charleston. I think he's at Moncks Corner, where Ambassador Haley has been doing a series of events there. And I understand you have a prime location spot there, Samuel. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, my mobile studio today is in the Bojangles parking lot. So coming to you live from beautiful South Carolina.
See, that's how you know it's legit coming from South Carolina. If that's the parking lot you're in for sure. Well, Samuel, as you've been covering the race and the course of the race, obviously the gap between former President Trump and Nikki Haley has still been projected as a pretty big number. But the conversations have been really interesting in South Carolina, and I think it's one that Nikki Haley has been trying to say, okay, South Carolina, you've been the course corrector before. You could change the dynamics once again.
Certainly. And the interesting thing here, Boyd, is that in Iowa and in New Hampshire, Haley's message was that she could win, that she was planning on winning, and that she wanted to win. And, of course, she took a close third in Iowa and then second place in New Hampshire. Here in South Carolina, you don't hear her talking about winning the primary, but she talks about competing and sending a message. There was a press call this morning with her campaign manager in which the campaign manager was asked as well, does Ambassador Haley think she can win South Carolina? Because polls show her down by almost 30 points. And the message wasn't a hard no, but it was the goal of this is to provide momentum going into Super Tuesday, which is only about 9 days or 10 days away now, and to go from there. There's no idea or no plan of dropping out of the race at this point. So although Ambassador Haley does have this huge deficit here in her home state, according to most of the polls, she's very optimistic that they can send a message that if South Carolina, a deep, deep red state that Trump has carried by huge margins in both 2016 and 2020, if she can compete here, then she can compete anywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's such an interesting thing. You go back to 2020, and there were a lot of calls rolling into South Carolina on the Democratic side. Bernie Sanders had all the momentum, and a lot of people were calling for then candidate Joe Biden to get out if he didn't do well in South Carolina. And then, of course, he got the endorsement of Jim Clyburn. Everything shifted, and the race dynamics really shifted. In terms of the Haley strategy, the numbers are just stunning to me that only 4% of Democrats voted in their primary earlier in the month. And so with the way they're structured there are 96% of the registered voters who could actually show up tomorrow and vote. What are people making of that inside South Carolina?
That's correct. Yeah, we have a story about that today up on Deseret.com about this interesting move by the Haley campaign to actually push Democrats to vote. Now, they haven't done any sort of formal advertising or text pushes or anything like that, but at the end of all of her stump speeches this week, Ambassador Haley has said, remember that if you didn't vote in the February 3rd Democratic primary and you're a Democrat or an independent, you're eligible to vote in the Republican primary. So she's sending this message to voters saying, you're welcome to join and vote for us and support us regardless of your party affiliation. Now, that's infuriated the state party leadership here. The state party chair on Monday put out a statement disavowing any of these so-called ridiculous pushes to get Democrats or others to vote in the Republican primary. In fact, it's been 7 years in a row now that the state legislature in South Carolina has tried to close the Republican primary to no avail. But then you have other groups. You have Haley's Super PAC, who's been doing ad buys and pushes on radio to get Democrats out. You have this other group called Primary Pivot, which is a super PAC started by two Democrats that are trying to send texts to all of the voters who didn't participate in the Democratic primary to get them to send in ballots on the Republican side. It's hard to know at this point how big of an impact that'll make, but it's certainly an interesting strategy by Haley, who for so long has been portraying herself as this kind of conservative Republican fighter, but now is having to recognize that she's going to have to cast a bigger net if she wants to compete in her own state.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting, and you pointed out this really well in your piece at Deseret.com, that there is this interesting pivot, and I think throughout her campaign, Nikki Haley has had a broader reach and much more stretch in terms of going from the conservative right into the center and even to some of those center-left Democrats and independents. Because she clearly believes that's where the country is. We heard in her speech on Monday when she did vow that come Sunday morning she'd still be in the race after South Carolina marching towards Super Tuesday. But she really did start to make that case where she was sort of tying President Biden and former President Trump together in terms of some of the failed policies and maybe hoping that the rest of the country can say, hey, wait a minute, maybe there is space for a different kind of conversation.
Yeah, over and over in her speeches, I've heard it twice already today, that she points to the data showing that 70% of Americans don't want former President Trump or President Biden as the options in November. So she's trying to bring together kind of this disenchanted middle of a majority, maybe a quiet majority of voters who don't want Trump or Biden, who want younger leadership, who want more optimistic leadership. And that's what she's banking on at this point. It might be a tough sell here in South Carolina where people know her. You have Republicans who loved her as a governor, who thought she did a wonderful job of growing industry here, of leading the state through really difficult challenges, whether it be the shooting at Mother Emanuel or lowering the Confederate flag from the state capitol. But then you also have Democrats who went through 2 terms of a Haley governorship and didn't like her very much. So she's kind of selling to a tough crowd of people who over the last 8 years have become big, Trump fans, MAGA folks, or kind of her former supporters or former opponents. That said, we go into Super Tuesday next week where 19 other states will be voting from, Utah to other states, Virginia, North Carolina. And those are kind of different voter bases as well. And it's very possible that her message does resonate. That said, she's not focused on that. The goal right now is South Carolina, where she does face this huge deficit. And the question is, I think you're exactly spot on, Boyd. I think the question is how many Democrats and independents turn out, because the vast majority of Republicans here say that they'll be voting for former President Trump.
Yeah, so interesting, and it's going to be fascinating. I'm going to be watching that tomorrow. Since we don't have NFL football, we're not quite to March Madness yet. It's all going to be about South Carolina politics tomorrow.
I love it.
But it will be interesting to see how that goes. Then, as you mentioned, everything pivots to Super Tuesday, just 9 days out. And, of course, she will have a stop here in the state of Utah next week, and we'll be covering that closely as well. Samuel Benson joining us from the exclusive Samuel Benson Bojangles studio in South Carolina today. That's how you know you're in, and you can always follow all of Samuel's writing. It is brilliant writing and great analysis at Deseret.com. Also pick up his newsletter there as well. And, Samuel, thanks for joining us. I know it's a busy day, and good luck tomorrow. We'll look forward to getting you back in the state.
Yeah, thank you, Boyd.
All right, that's Samuel Benson, and again, coming from the Bojangles parking lot there in South Carolina, just outside of North Charleston. Moncks Corner is really where they've been most of the day today with Ambassador Haley. So we'll continue to track all of that. That's your look at presidential politics. We'll step aside for a quick break, come back with some important conversations about homelessness coming up next. Stick around.
This is the day of the big sale at your gift shop.
Welcome in.
So this isn't just a big day for your business. It's a big day for the network keeping it all connected. That is, if it can handle the pressure.
Next in line, please.
So is it possible to get business internet you can really count on? It is. With 99.9% network reliability from Comcast Business. It's like this neat little bow.
Would you like that gift wrap?
Really ties it all together. Reliable internet for your business. It's not just possible. It's happening. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Get started with fast speeds and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year contract. Plus, ask how to get an $800 prepaid card on a qualifying internet package. Don't wait. Call or go online today to switch to Comcast Business. Ends 5/5/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 50 megabits per second internet and security edge. Equal bill and auto pay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After 12 months, regular rates apply.
David Dujanovic here. You hear us every weekday on KSL from 9 to noon.
But have you listened to our podcast?
We're running a secret contest just for podcast listeners.
You could win a new pair of AirPod Pros every week in February just for listening.
Here's how you do it. Find our show on KSLpodcast.com
or wherever you listen to podcasts and listen for the keywords.
When you hear one, text it to 57500 and you'll be in to win.
That's it. We'll see you on our podcast, David Dujanovic with KSL News Radio.
Grab your family and some gear and head to the 2024 Skijoring the Bear exhibition in Garden City on Friday, February 23rd. Bring your skis and join the race or attend as a spectator to watch horses pull skiers through a course with jumps. Race divisions include Open, Novice, and Rookie, with buckles and cash prizes for the division winners. Everyone can enjoy food trucks, vendors, and more. Skijoring the Bear in Garden City, just west of Heritage Park. Helmets are required for skijoring, and you need to bring your own skis. Kids 10 to 12 are free. Great lodging deals can be found at bearlake.org. Attend this exhibition event on Friday, February 23rd to see or experience the excitement of skijoring. Visit skijoringthebear.com for more information. skijoringthebear.com.
When's the best time to plant a tree? It was 20 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree? It's now. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I remember years ago being sent home from elementary school with a small tree in a styrofoam cup. I know some of you can relate. If that was planted, it's now bigger than you are. Your finances are the same way. The best time to get started, or the best time to get a second opinion, is now. And with time and patience, imagine how big your financial tree could be. 20 years ago, if you invested $1,000 in Apple stock, it could be worth over $500,000 today. That is a big tree. Do that for you and do that for someone you love. Call Trajan Wealth today and help us help you plant that financial tree.
Call 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit TrajanWealth.com.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you ever feel like getting your supplies for your CPAP is just a huge headache? Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical. We'll say goodbye to the hassle and hello to a stress-free life with our CPAP resupply service. Signing up is a breeze. Just place a call, choose your products, and leave the insurance billing and shipping to us. Our discreet packaging prioritizes your privacy, and we always ensure an on-time delivery. No more trips to the store or worrying about running out of important supplies. We get how crucial your CPAP therapy is, so don't let the stress of keeping up with it affect your sleep and health. Join Alpine Resupply today and enjoy a tranquil night's sleep with all your CPAP essentials. Visit us at alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bonas. First, a man in the business of lacing up baseball gloves is working with youth leagues to make sure everybody can play. Second, a school bus driver who protected the kids on his bus is being called a hero. And third, the Alabama Supreme Court decision on embryos used for in vitro fertilization could turn into a nationwide political issue. Right now, 50 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and one of the things that we have talked about regularly and in depth on this show is dealing with those that are in the various aspects of homelessness or being unsheltered or being on the street. And there's a wide range of people and circumstances that lead somebody there, and the paths to get out are not singular. And really grateful to have joining us on the program today. Randy Shumway is in studio today. He's the founder and chairman of the Cicero Group, of course, treasurer of Utah's Impact Partnership, and co-chair of the Utah Homeless Council. Has had a series of op-eds at Deseret.com that have been really powerful. And Randy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
This is a crucial conversation. It's one that I think, to be honest, for decades, I think we've done poorly. I think we tried to mask it with money for a while, and cash flow covers a multitude of sins, as you know from your business experience, but often doesn't produce the right kind of results. And you're really helping to lead a conversation around some principles and ideas to say, let's have this conversation a little different. Explain that for us.
Well, municipalities all over the country are grappling with this human crisis referred to as homelessness. And the reality is we spent billions of dollars as a country.
Yeah.
And yet, as just one example, chronic homelessness has grown 60% in the last 5 years. So what we're doing is working in some circumstances, but not in all. And so the thesis of the 5 columns was that we've got to do a better job of diagnosing what the true root problems are.
Yeah. Yeah. And getting to that, I think, is so important. And I love the fact that you call this a human crisis. I think for far too long we have looked at those on the street as liabilities to be managed rather than as human assets, fellow travelers on planet Earth with infinite potential. And I think that's part of what your message is that we need to treat all of these people in all those individual circumstances like they are fellow travelers with us.
Human dignity. That's the focus of the columns.
Yeah, absolutely. And so unpack that for us in terms of, again, getting past this monolithic bucket of one size fits all. How should we be having that conversation?
Boyd, before we jumped on air, you and I were talking about the challenge we have with calling it homelessness.
Yeah.
And the reality is that's a symptom.
Yeah.
But not the root problem. And we treat everyone who's experiencing homelessness similarly, with similar solutions. The reality is that those that are experiencing situational homelessness, oftentimes their challenges are economic. It's jobs, it's education, it's housing. But for those experiencing chronic homelessness, which is much more painful and much more difficult for society to help solve, their root challenge is trauma with multiple symptoms, but pretty consistently too.
Yeah.
And that's mental and behavioral health disabilities as well as some substance use disorder.
Yeah. And so I want to break those two things down because you mentioned we were talking before we came on the air, and if you were taking $1,000 to someone who's in that interim space of homelessness, maybe because of a job loss or a divorce or something that way, that's very different than throwing $1,000 at someone who's either got a substance abuse issue or a mental disorder. Just kind of walk us through that.
Well, oftentimes we refer to evidence-based practices, and there are a number of practices that work for different subpopulations, but actually make the problems worse for other subpopulations. And then we spend a lot of money and say, well, how's the problem worse? And the problem's worse because for an individual, as you just highlighted, for whom there's a disruption in life, they were just evicted. They're up over their skis economically. The evidence is pretty compelling. You give them $1,000, and that can be catalytic in helping them get back on their feet. But you give somebody who's chronically homeless, somebody who is navigating substance use disorder, somebody who's struggling with mental and behavioral health disabilities, $1,000, and you very well may be making their root problems much, much more difficult.
Yeah, so important. So let's go through some of these pillars and some of these things that you point out in these Deseret.com pieces. And we'll post all of these so you can follow along with those. But let's look at some of those guiding principles in terms of, you mentioned some of the research-based, kind of the best practices component. There's also this accountability process that often gets lost. Intentions are always great, but if we're not measuring what the outcomes are, it gets pretty messy pretty fast.
I've worked intimately with individuals that are navigating homelessness and other difficulties for a few decades now, And I have never interacted with someone who's helping this vulnerable population who isn't very well intentioned.
Yeah.
Good intentions don't always equate to good outcomes. So I would say at its core, we need an underlying change in philosophy surrounding elevated expectations. Society helps its most vulnerable by elevating our objectives to increase that self-sufficiency and accountability. We do this by looking someone in the eye and telling them we love them, we believe in them, and while we know they have lost hope, we haven't. We aren't giving up on you.
Yeah.
And we're going to bring the resources to bear to help you heal. But you've got to do your part too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That self-reliance, the behavioral component to that, I think is such a vital part of that discussion. And again, it often gets lost in the good intentions category. That you got to have people invested in it. They've got to buy in. There's behavioral issues, not just asset problems. There's behavioral problems that have to be worked through. And I think getting to that stage of it, I think, is such a different conversation. And so as you look at how we march that all forward, what are some of the things that we should be looking for, or each of our roles in all of this, as we try to figure out how can we provide those resources where the resources are necessary? How do we make sure we're having some accountability, that self-reliance component, so that we can get to the results that you're talking about?
I'll begin by suggesting this is a very complex problem. So there is not a simple solution. There's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
There's no solution that rules them all.
Yeah.
But let me give a few ideas. Number one, for our chronically homeless, we need a know them by name system that is weaved with a individualized, comprehensive care plan that helps an individual improve along the continuum of care. And this system not only helps the individual, but it allows policymakers to know what's working and what's not working.
Yeah.
So that we're much smarter with our limited resources.
Yeah.
There's so many benefits to a know-by-name system. Second, we have tried to bricks and mortar our way out of this, and meaning building shelter, and we need shelter.
No question.
We need it for the safety and for the consistency that helps a person start to heal. But let's be clear, that's an activity, an important activity, but an activity. We also need mental and behavioral health care and substance use disorder support.
Right.
So that we're getting really to the root problem. Third, we need more people. What I'm excited about is the degree to which the University of Utah, SLIC, the licensing agency here in the state of Utah, are working in real close collaboration to help bring significantly more trained, prepared clinical behavioral health specialists to bear.
Love it.
Really quickly. And then the last is we need criminal justice reform, and it's things like we need to allow for civil commitment. We need sequential intercept and diversion models that are really helping us bring the support needed for the right problems. But lastly, Boyd, we actually, in criminal justice reform, if you're committing crime, you have to stop.
Yeah.
Not only for the safety of the general public, but particularly for the safety of our most vulnerable, those that were most. We have the greatest responsibility to help.
Yeah, no question. Randy Shumway, great conversation. Just the beginning of this. We're going to stay with it. Lots to discuss and get to. But Randy, thanks so much for your perspective today. That wraps up hour number 1 of Inside Sources. We'll be right back.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. School bus driver Joey Skelton was named a hero earlier today by the Jordan School District and West Jordan Police for saving his riders from a car that ignored his flashing stop arm. Skelton followed every step right, the police said, to warn the kids not to cross the street. Those kids honored him with handmade gifts.
Thank you, Joey, for keeping us safe.
You're so welcome.
Authorities say Utah reports 700 stop arm violations every day on average. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Nikki Haley is trying to counter former President Trump's advantage with Republican voters on the immigration issue. She was campaigning today in her home state, South Carolina.
We will do a national E-Verify program so that every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens.
Haley trails Trump in polls going into tomorrow's primary in South Carolina. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up 62 points and the NASDAQ down 44 right now. And our KSL weather. Enjoy the weekend because things are going to change as soon as Monday gets here. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Maybe it's because they're excited about Leap Day at the end of February. This is Jeff Kaplan. At Advanced Window Products, Leap Day means they get an extra day to build windows. But for you, it's an incredible opportunity. This month, they'll give you $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. $2,500 off on the highest quality custom window frames and double pane glass. They'll lower your energy bill and give your home an exciting new look. Any style, any color. At Advanced Window Products, you save money because they cut out the middleman. They build your windows right here in Salt Lake City. They install the windows and they guarantee them for life. So beat the rush. Once it gets warmer, their schedule backs up and you have to wait months and months for installation. So make the call and get to the head of the line. Save $2,500 and get custom precision windows built right here in Salt Lake City. Advanced Window Products offers 60-month 0% financing. You can buy now, pay later, but call now. 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or visit AdvancedWindowsUSA.com.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. You know, inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370 or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Good speeds on the Valley freeways. We have a stalled vehicle in traffic in South Salt Lake State Street at 33rd South and a crash at 7800 South, about 5500 West in West Jordan. Tired of being a doorman for your furry friends? Say hello to Utah's own Pet Door Products. Their pet doors are energy efficient, weatherproof, and secure. Visit www.petdoorproducts.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather sunny and mild through the weekend with highs near 60 on Sunday. Then a storm moves in Monday and we could see snow in the valleys by Tuesday. Right now, 50 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
It was 2 years ago tomorrow when Russia began its invasion of eastern Ukraine. The prospects at the time, of course, were very grim for Ukraine. No one thought the Russian war machine would be held off for very long until, of course, the Ukrainians proved the world wrong. Their determination, their will to fight and defend their territory shocked everyone, especially the Russian forces, I think, who continue to face heavy losses in material and men as they continue to fight this battle. But as we all know, no war is won just by bullets and artillery shells alone. It takes not only great leadership and a functioning government, but a functioning economy to keep it all going, as well as the citizens to keep their faith and hope moving forward. So we're 2 years into this war and this battle for Ukraine. The question is, what does the future look like? So let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, as we think again about where we think we are as it relates to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and the Ukrainians' iron will and resolve, we want to get past all of that a little bit and look underneath and behind the scenes in terms of where we are and the individual toll as well as the economic toll. And I'm really thrilled to have joining us back on the program once again, Jonathan Friedman, of course, who's president and CEO of World Trade Center Utah. He's also the honorary consul to Ukraine. And Jonathan, welcome back to the show.
Boyd, thank you for having me. I can't believe it's been 2 years already that we've been talking about this.
Yeah, it is amazing that we are at this point. Give us, just to begin with, just kind of your high-level observation in terms of where we've been and where you think we actually are today.
Sure. Well, let's remember that Ukrainians are fighting like tigers to defend their freedom, their families, their country. They want to control their own destiny. And so for the last 2 years, since this illegal full-scale invasion where Putin and his forces crossed a sovereign nation's borders, we have been so impressed and just in the level of just how the Ukrainians have reacted. They have they've excited the world and galvanized the world really around them.
Yeah, and as you look at how that's played out, describe a little bit about your role as the honorary consul to Ukraine and what you've seen in that role, really looking at kind of the face and soul of the Ukrainian people.
Sure. Well, on a local level here in Utah, I represent the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine here. And that means that I support the Ukrainian community here, which has tripled in the last 2 years with refugees coming to Utah. We were at about 1,500 Ukrainians here. Now we're roughly, 4,000 plus. And now they have temporary permits to be here. They're here on humanitarian parole. But our Ukrainian community is thriving and vibrant here in the state. I also help foster economic development between Utah and Ukraine, and there's a lot of economic activity involving Utah businesses in Ukraine. And we encourage cultural exchanges. We also host dignitaries, Ukrainian dignitaries here in the state.
Yeah, and I know you've been very involved in kind of that dual role between World Trade Center Utah and your role as the honorary consul to Ukraine. Give us a sense of that economic front. I know there was a delegation from Utah that went over to Ukraine. Give us a sense of that and how those relationships are starting to blossom and what they're actually meaning both here in the state of Utah, but also for those in Ukraine.
Yeah, so you're right. Last May, our Senate President, Stuart Adams, led a delegation of business leaders and associations and humanitarian nonprofits to Ukraine. We focused on aerospace and defense, agriculture, technology, and again, a number of humanitarian efforts that are underway, incredible projects that are happening that are really affecting a large amount of Ukrainians and their families. Our mission was to help their economy. How can Utah help? And we thought to ourselves, we can support their economy by also helping our Utah economy, right? And so it was a very successful mission since then. But it was never about a photo op with Zelensky. We did meet with the president. It was about substance, right? And so what we followed that up with 2 other trade delegations that have been there since. One that was focused on aerospace and defense, 47G, an incredible association focused on that sector in our state. Had a delegation that went in late October, and then we had a healthcare summit. Our life science community also went after that. We have others, agriculture, that are planning on going, and so we were the first state to send a trade delegation to support that country. And very proud of that.
Yeah, I love that. That's very much the Utah model. We always talk about sending that to Washington and beyond. And this is really one of those beyond moments. And it's been interesting to watch that play out over the course of just the past year in terms of those visits that you talked about, both just the upfront one in terms of business in general, but then the aerospace, healthcare, and obviously with all the agriculture, with Ukraine really being the breadbasket there for Europe. And all of the challenges that have come based on Russia's invasion there. Give us a sense in terms of kind of where things are at the moment. And obviously there's a lot of political debate going on in terms of aid and support militarily to Ukraine. But what are some of the other conversations that you're hearing or seeing or sensing at this point?
Yeah. So what we're seeing is that Putin has kind of constructed this new axis of evil, right? With other bad actors that don't like America, and so Ukraine is in need now more than ever of the West's support, of our support, of the European Union support, and it's great to see our allies step up. You know, recently the European Union pledged another 50 billion euro to support Ukraine and their military needs. You know, in America, I mean, we believe, I think one of our, we believe that that a strong defense is our best offense. And this, I think it's illustrated so importantly right in this scenario where we're investing 5% of our defense budget to aid a country without having to send our own men and women in uniform to fight. And, it seems that is just an incredible investment as we are decimating Russia's military. There's been, unfortunately, a huge loss of life on both sides. But Russia is taking the brunt of that. So great investment on our part without having to really send our, men and women in uniform in harm's way.
Yeah, no question. And that fight for freedom continues on. Jonathan Friedman, of course, president and CEO of World Trade Center Utah, talking to us today in that also additional role, which is a big one, the honorary consul to Ukraine. And he's been doing that since 2007 to serve as that honorary consul of Ukraine in Utah. And also, just as an important side note, was actually recognized and awarded the Order of Merit by President Zelensky, highest honor given to a non-Ukrainian citizen, and understands that deep connection and the passion for freedom and self-determination that is every bit alive and well in Ukraine today as it is here in the United States of America. Jonathan, thanks for your efforts. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd.
That's Jonathan Friedman, once again, from World Trade Center Utah, honorary consul to Ukraine. Crucial conversation, and yes, we can get caught in the politics of it all. I think we have to be very aware of what dictators declare they're going to do because they tend to be very transparent and they tend to do it. And so I think there are ways you can make sure that funds are spent well and right and in productive and meaningful ways. And freedom is always worth fighting for. And the United States will always have a role, not to be the world's policeman, but to be a place that supports and sustains those who are willing to fight for their own freedom. And we're 2 years in now. The Ukrainian forces continue to show great valor, incredible courage, and that should be matched by the rest of the world because the fight for freedom is all of our fight. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
Senate Bill 210 is a medical emergency at the Utah legislature. Ophthalmologists and optometrists are not the same. Optometrists don't complete medical school, no hospital internship, and no surgical residency. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors with years of surgical training on real patients. Now, optometrists want to perform surgery using lasers on the only eyes you'll ever have. Optometrists are not medical doctors, yet they want Senate Bill 210 to suddenly make them surgeons. Does that make sense to you? Your state legislator can help stop this nonsense by voting no. It takes years of training to make a surgeon. No bill can ever change that. Your legislator can help stop this nonsense. Tell your legislator to keep Utah eyes safe.
Paid for by the Utah Ophthalmology Society.
What a difference a week makes. Cold and rain last week, sun and 50s next week.
Mid-50s for the weekend?
Utah weather is never dull.
It's just incredible.
For a reliable forecast every 10 minutes on the 9s, tune in mornings and afternoons.
We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Are you stressing about your IRS tax problems? Have you received notices from the IRS threatening to garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, or seize your property? You need an ally. Allies Tax Relief has tax attorneys and enrolled agents that are ready to fight for you. They have saved millions for taxpayers just like you. Allies Tax Relief can help put a stop to IRS collections and, most importantly, negotiate your tax debt. Here's Brenda, a happy client of Allies Tax Relief.
I owed the IRS around $57,000, and they're about to start garnishing my paychecks. I heard a commercial on the radio about Allies Tax Relief, so I thought I'd give them a call. After a day, they were able to at least stop the garnishments, and after a few months of negotiations, I walked away owing the IRS only $301.
If you owe the IRS, call Allies Tax Relief right now for your free consultation. Call 800-647-0499. 800-647-0499. That's 800-647-0499.
This song doesn't have a name, but if it did, it'd probably be something about togetherness, because it's a collaboration, not between pop stars and producers, but between music therapists and kids. Music therapy is a treatment that doesn't involve medication or needles, and it's been proven to help children manage pain and contribute to faster healing. So it shouldn't surprise you, it's our favorite song. And just one way we partner with you for a life well lived. Intermountain Health, the power of we.
As the new year begins, you and your credit card might be ready for a quiet break. Experience the relief of a low rate with the Mountain America credit card. With a 3% cash bonus on balance transfers, it's more relaxing than ever. Open a Mountain America credit card today for your limited time bonus. Details at macu.com/transfer. Loans and approved credit. Membership required based on eligibility. Offer can change or be withdrawn at any time. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
I'm Jason Walton. In business, I mentor hundreds of Utahns as they pursue their American dream. The same dream career politicians treat with contempt. They send our money to our enemies abroad while shortchanging our veterans at home. It's not right. They're letting drug cartels escort criminals and terrorists across our border. It's time to stand up. So I'm running for the United States Senate. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from PIE, or go to pieinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then PIE Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
A stranger with a gun fires on 2 teens, shattering lives. But that's only the beginning of this story. Listen to The Letter at theletterpodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Tim and Amanda.
Yes, KSL is a trusted institution. I mean, it's a 100-year-old institution, and I know that with that legacy comes a responsibility and a trust. But I want you to know, we have diverse voices at this radio station. young people. We have people of all different ages, of all different cultural backgrounds, who put their 2 cents into what stories we cover from day to day, a voice that is given to those stories.
Well, I've been kicking around the Salt Lake City market for 40 years. I felt like I needed a decade of radio under my belt before I even attempted to climb that mountain. So as important as KSL is to you, you need to know that it's an important institution for both of us and something that we take very seriously, in the responsibility of providing the right news and information for you and your families every day and carrying on the tradition of this great radio station.
Utah's Morning News between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Get deeper insights on the news from inside sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today, as always. I am Boyd Matheson, and it's always interesting to look at what's going on in rural America and things that are and are not happening. And just an amazing piece. Dana Milbank, of course, nationally syndicated opinion columnist for the Washington Post, does commentary on a host of different news outlets, author of 3 books on politics, but had just a piece that caught my attention today there in the Post, talking about President Biden and investments made in rural America. Very red. We talked about the president taking credit for some student loans and sending out a "You're welcome" email. When it comes to getting broadband and internet into these rural places, probably no welcome, thank you, coming back. And Dana, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
And I just have to have you give us a snapshot of the story of how you came to really understand the importance of this infrastructure for broadband and internet in our rural communities.
Well, I came to understand it in a very personal way. In fact, I'm talking to you now from my farm in rural Virginia. So apologies in advance if we don't complete this interview, but I've got decent service now. But I'm coming from the city where you'd get gigabit service. It was a little bit surprising for me to come out here and discover. The internet goes out one night, and it's because some animal across the valley had nibbled some cable, apparently, and then water got into it, and then the tree that the dish was in was rotting. So this was an unfamiliar thing to me. And, for me, just coming out here, it's an inconvenience. But, looking into the issue generally, there are millions of Americans who don't have internet at all because they just can't access it in rural areas. So there's about 7 million households. So, well more than 7 million people who there's just no access to broadband internet at all. So, you're just trying your luck with your phone, or maybe you've got some, sketchy satellite-based internet. But there's millions and millions more who have inadequate, it's just really slow and creepy internet, or it's available in their rural area, but it's so expensive that they can't afford it. So, we're talking maybe 40 million Americans living in rural areas who really are not part of the information age. And for them, it's critical. You can't do telemedicine. You can't do teleworking. You certainly can't do e-commerce from home, and let alone the things many people in cities and suburbs take for granted is streaming a movie.
Right.
So it's it's very different, and for many years that was the agrarian life, and there's a lot of charm in it, but it's really leaving rural areas behind economically. So it's hugely important.
Yeah, it is such an important thing. We've got a lot of things going on here in the state of Utah to make sure that access is there for all of those reasons, including telehealth and some of those things. And I'm just going to encourage everyone to go to the Washington Post today and read this piece, because just the description of the fact that it wasn't even a connection to your house or your property. It was a squirrel on the other side of the valley that did that. So you've got to go read that today. But I want to get to the politics of this, and both the governing component to it as well. Clearly, President Biden moved some things forward. And one of the things that even people within the administration and the Democratic Party more broadly have said, look, Mr. President, you got to take some credit for some of these things that are getting done. And this seems to be one where the president might have a hard time selling, even if he's doing a great service out there.
Yeah, I mean, look, he can go out and take credit, but it doesn't mean it's going to be given to him. We see that with the economy as well. Everything is just so partisan in our system that it's just not going to happen. 73% of Americans in rural precincts. This is the real rural America. I'm not even talking about small towns. They voted for Donald Trump in 2020. These are the people who are, most helped by this investment in broadband, and it's $90 billion over 10 years, and it's from things like the infrastructure bill, and it's from the a lot of that COVID relief money. And a lot of this, Republican lawmakers opposed. And, in the case of the infrastructure bill, Marjorie Taylor Greene was out there saying it's, they're traitors if they voted for it. But this is actually what's helping people in these rural communities, whether they even know it or not, or whether they, appreciate it or not. But, so I give Biden credit for that. He said he's, going to be a president for all Americans. And this is a pretty good example of that. He's not helping a lot of his own voters, shall we say, with these kind of initiatives.
Yeah. And we are always equal opportunity offenders, and we're also equal opportunity commenders on this show. And this is one of those.
All right. Good to hear it.
Where I think we can commend the president and say, look, this did have a positive impact on rural America. And again, these are things that in terms of being president for all Americans, this is one of those things that you just have to get done. And kudos to the president for making all of that role. And Dana, we're going to have you come back on. I think you've got more adventures from your farm that I want to hear about in terms of.
Oh, no. Who knows what's going to come up next? I'll probably cut my leg off with a chainsaw.
Yeah, don't do that. We need you back, and we need you to continue to write. Dana Milbank, syndicated opinion columnist for the Washington Post. He's a great writer, a great thinker, and you need to go read this piece. You need to read all of Dana's pieces. They're really thoughtful, and they'll help you see things in a different light, beyond just the partisan lens, where you can actually look at the practical, tactical of what does this mean, and can we have a different kind of conversation around it. Dana, thanks again for joining us today.
Oh, very kind of you. Thank you.
All right, that's Dana Milbank, syndicated opinion columnist for the Washington Post. And I just kept chuckling reading this story and just imagining, again, on the other side of the valley, away from his farm, a squirrel in a tree with a dish in a tree. Ultimately was the problem for him not being able to have the internet and stream a movie for his children, amongst other things. But then you start getting into the process pieces of it. How do you get it fixed? And the fact that it's so remote and so rural, that the number of customers is so small, that not a lot of people are motivated to do that. That puts you kind of at the bottom of the priority list. And that's why a lot of these things that we look at in terms of policy, that impact rural communities that we really all need to be on board with. A great perspective as always. All right, we'll step aside for some bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top story this hour, a bill aimed at helping to bring Major League Baseball to Salt Lake City has passed a Utah House committee. If Utah were to get a team, the bill would raise the hotel and rental car tax rates to subsidize half the cost of a new stadium on Salt Lake City's west side. And while many in attendance were for the bill, Josh Sutton, a St. George-based lodging executive, spoke against it.
I do not think we should be increasing transient room tax, car rental tax, and other various taxes outside of the county where the project is taking place for something that will largely benefit one area of the state.
Sutton said most of the business comes from Utahns in his part of the state, not from out-of-state visitors. The bill is now headed to the full House for a vote. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. President Biden met with a bipartisan group of governors in Washington today, urged them to support a bill that includes aid for Ukraine and more funding for border security. Utah Governor Spencer Cox was asked what the governors could do.
One of the challenges we face, governors, we do things. We get stuff done. We're very proud of that. We solve problems. This is a problem that governors can't solve, although we're trying as much as we can.
Cox says there's a general consensus among governors that Congress does have to do something. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today, 62 points higher, while the NASDAQ was down 44 points. The S&P 500 pretty steady at 1.7 points up. And our KSL weather looks like a sunny weekend ahead. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Okay, that's good. Whoa, Dave!
Sorry, I'll go grab some paper towels. You can't let Dave pour things. He works at JCW's. They fill stuff up past the brim over there, like their milkshakes. They're thick, rich, and oh my gosh.
Delicious?
Oh no, Dave's filling up Crystal's car for her.
Dave, stop!
Hey, this is Clark for JCW. Stop into any of our 5 locations today. We're located in American Fork, Thanksgiving Point, Provo, South Jordan, and our new location in Harriman. Come in and see why at JCW's we believe in quality and a lot of it.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Everybody knows I'm a movie fan, but I have to tell you, when it comes to Fiddler on the Roof, I had never seen it before on stage. Hale Center Theater's production is spectacular, better than the movie. Absolutely loved it. And by the way, my wife, who's somewhat of an aficionado, she starred as Seidel in her performing arts college production of Fiddler on the Roof. She said, this is spectacular. You're going to love the choreography, and the staging is remarkable, and the tunes, the music is just overwhelming. It's wonderful. Plus, I've got to talk about one scene in particular. This is where Tevye brings back Grandma to convince the wife that Seidel shouldn't marry the guy she's going to marry. The use of the stage and the aerials is simply breathtaking.
Don't miss Fiddler on the Roof. It's playing right now at Hale Center Theater. Pick up your season tickets, gift cards, and more. Go to hct.org.
You know that feeling? You flush the toilet and it goes down okay, but you feel like it used to really whoosh when it went down, and now it's more of a gurgle than a whoosh, and that's probably okay, but what if that gurgle instead of a whoosh means there's actually a bigger problem down there? Whipple that away. Making gurgly drains whoosh again is my job. Make your problem my problem. Whipple Service Champions. We can solve your sewer problems in just one day. Visit whipplethataway.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have an accident being cleared northbound Mountain View corridor at 3500 south on the left, and in Utah County, a crash northbound on Highway 6 at 800 north in Spanish Fork. Cypress checking account members enjoy discounted rates on auto and RV loans, free access to their credit scores and reports, and a suite of other products and perks. Learn more at cypresscu.com. Cypress Credit Union, your future is our future. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
KSL weather, sunny and mild through the weekend with highs near 60 on Sunday. The storm moves in Monday. We could see snow in the valleys by Tuesday. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, yesterday we spent some time diving into the distraction and dopamine addiction that's been sweeping the country. And even further, we took a look at just a fascinating piece. You should all check this out. Ted Gioia's fantastic State of Culture. So he was kind of juxtapositioning this against the president's State of the Union speech coming up here in just a couple weeks. And he's talking about the state of culture. And we're going to go even further today to look not just at the state of culture and what's happened as we've gone from art, and within art I would include music and literature, scripture, poetry, all of those things. We went from that to entertainment. From entertainment, we've gone to distraction, where we're constantly just scrolling. And ultimately, that leads to addiction, where those dopamine hits that you get as you doom scroll through your social media feed get you trapped in this space and ultimately leads you to a place where you are past feeling. You are no longer unable to feel based on things that used to create a positive feeling for you in your life. And so this dopamine addiction is leading us to some pretty dangerous spaces as a society. It prevents us from having deeper conversation. It prevents us from doing the kind of learning and appreciation and connection to real people. In the piece, he actually talked about the fact that we've gone from playing sports to watching sports to now we're gambling on sports because we're getting to that, again, distraction, that dopamine hit, which leads to addiction. Or the way journalism has gone from newspaper, deep reading, long form to multimedia pieces that are much more quick hit, and now it's just clickbait. You can talk about videos going from long form films and then TV and then to video, and now we've got these 15 to 30 second reels and shorts going on as we scroll through. You can take it in the communication space, from handwritten letters to a voicemail to email to memos, and now a short text, and it's not even a text anymore, it's just a bunch of emojis. And so all of these things have short-circuited our ability to get to the deeper things and the more elevating things. And that's part of the challenge in our country, and it actually leads to where I want to dive in today. And that is this whole addiction. The next form of the addiction is an addiction to chaos. And that we are now, as Americans, embracing this nihilism that is upending our politics, that is preventing us from getting to problem solving on any level. Great piece in The Atlantic by Derek Thompson, is a staff writer there, talking about this whole nihilistic view and path that we find ourselves on today. And so really interesting, they did some fascinating studies around this in terms of what people were willing to share. And amazingly, people have become more and more willing to share just about anything online. But they particularly love to share chaos, conspiracy theories, regardless of who it hurts or helps. In fact, they did a really interesting study. They took a group of pretty well-known people, some Democrats, some Republicans, Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and they served them up some blatantly false stories about these people and then asked, would you share these online? And amazingly, people were willing to share all of it, whether they liked Bernie Sanders or hated Bernie Sanders, whether they liked Ted Cruz or hated Ted Cruz. And so suddenly we find ourselves in this really weird space. We've talked a lot about the elites of late, and there is clearly this populist surge in the country where taking down the elites has become good sport. Often society will build the elites up and then find great joy in tearing them apart and ripping them down. The interesting thing to me is that this really has become part of that dopamine addiction, is this nihilism. In fact, one of the quotes in the piece is actually from The Dark Knight. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And that's where our politics has landed, that we have this new nihilism, this desire to see everything just destroyed and torn down without having a plan to fix it, by the way, which I think is the biggest problem. It takes no discipline to just deconstruct and tear down. Just opposing things that takes no mental discipline or deep thought. But we keep rewarding people who are chaos creators. We often refer to them on this show in honor of our friend, the former Senator Ben Sasse from Nebraska, who just called this performative jackassery. It's a form of chaos creation. And again, it's preventing us as a nation from having the conversations that can actually solve the problems that we're dealing with as a nation. It was also interesting in this piece in The Atlantic that they talked about some people are no longer even interested in having a conversation about the solution because they find it very boring if there isn't chaos. So this need for chaos, again, go back to our discussion about avoidance and distraction, then becoming an addiction. And then you get to this point that it doesn't do it for you anymore, so you need more and more and more. And now we need more and more and more chaos in order to feed the beast and to keep that dopamine hit going. Now, I think it's very interesting, rolling into South Carolina tomorrow on the Republican side, that Nikki Haley is trying to give the counterpoint to this kind of nihilism and saying, look, we got to be done with chaos in this country. And she's trying to make that case. And I think for a lot of those on the far right of the Republican Party, the nihilism is actually working for them. And they would be bored if there was not chaos. But that doesn't take us anywhere. And if all we're doing is just feeding this need for chaos over and over and over again, and then rewarding those who create chaos, which only helps their own status, power, or control, then where do we end up? Because eventually, those calling for the chaos and to just burn it down will eventually burn it down. And so someone, and that someone, by the way, is you and me and everyone else. We can't point fingers or place blame on this one. We have to stop feeding the beast. We have to stop clicking. We have to stop scrolling. We have to say, I'm not going to be part of the chaos conversation anymore. Because then and only then will it begin to stop. Sadly, it's become kind of a chronic condition in our politics. And I love the way this piece in The Atlantic concluded with a finger right on the journalists and their own company, saying if we want to understand the need for chaos, it might be useful to scrutinize the ways in which we are responsible for growing the public's taste for narratives that catastrophize and promise with something different, which is improvement and forward movement. Interesting stuff. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. We'll come back. Final segment, Inside Sources, coming up next.
Sometimes you just need to know.
The man is in police custody. The FBI is investigating the incident.
Other times, you need to know more.
The police have said there is no threat right now.
The why is also really important, and we'll get to more on that in just a moment.
Get breaking news from Tim and Amanda first thing in the morning. Then join Dave, Debbie, and Boyd Matheson for deeper conversation about the news in your middays. And Jeff Kaplan on the drive home. When you want to know more,
We have you covered
all day
on KSL News Radio.
American energy is under attack. Joe Biden has waged a war on American natural resources and made it harder to produce affordable, reliable, and clean energy right here in Utah. Our energy prices are already going up. Biden's policies will make it worse. But Republican John Curtis has our back. There is no greater supporter of unleashing American energy than John Curtis. John Curtis knows our abundant natural resources help keep us free and safe, powers our economy, keeps the lights on, and keeps Utah on the move. John Curtis is Utah tough. He's taken the fight to Joe Biden and the Washington politicians who all want to hurt American energy. And now we need a conservative to take the fight to the United States Senate. We need Republican John Curtis, a strong defender of American energy dominance in the fight for us.
Paid for by ClearPath Action Fund. Not authorized by any candidate or candidate committee.
The KSL News Radio Movie Show comes to My Hearing Centers this Friday from 10 to 1. But first, discover what My Hearing Centers can do for you. My Hearing Centers uses advanced technology to diagnose and treat hearing loss. These comprehensive evaluations determine the best treatment options. Then enjoy lifetime support with regular check-ins, cleaning, and maintenance. Call My Hearing Centers at 801-701-1629 for details. 801-701-1629.
If you've ever experienced running out of hot water before your shower was done or hard water spots on dishes and fixtures, I've got a deal you might be interested in. What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and you probably already know that a tankless water heater and a water softener solve both issues. If you've ever thought about looking into getting a tankless water heater, here's the deal I was talking about. Through the end of February, we're including a free water softener with every new tankless water heater we install. The best part of this deal might be that you never have to worry about being the last one to the shower again, or that you don't have to waste the money keeping 40 to 50 gallons of water hot 24/7. To take advantage of this deal, call Any Hour Services before the end of February. The visit's free and there's no obligation to buy. If you decide to have us install a new tankless water heater, we'll throw in the water softener for free. That's right, a free water softener when you purchase a tankless water heater. Pick up the phone and call Any Hour Services right now for all the details. 801-443-7400. You can Google Any Hour Services. You can even schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive. Like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom! I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
I'm Jason Walton. In business, I mentor hundreds of Utahns as they pursue their American dream. The same dream career politicians treat with contempt. They send our money to our enemies abroad while shortchanging our veterans at home. It's not right. They're letting drug cartels escort criminals and terrorists across our border. It's time to stand up. So I'm running for the United States Senate. Stand with me. I'm Jason Walton, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Senate Bill 210 is a medical emergency at the Utah legislature. Ophthalmologists and optometrists are not the same. Optometrists don't complete medical school, no hospital internship, and no surgical residency. Ophthalmologists are medical doctors with years of surgical training on real patients. Now, optometrists want to perform surgery using lasers on the only eyes you'll ever have. Optometrists are not medical doctors, yet they want Senate Bill 210 to suddenly make them surgeons. Does that make sense to you? Your state legislator can help stop this nonsense by voting no. It takes years of training to make a surgeon. No bill can ever change that. Your legislator can help stop this nonsense. Tell your legislator to keep Utah eyes safe.
Paid for by the Utah Ophthalmology Society.
Do you hear that? If you're like many people, that's the sound of your money. Just lying there in a checking or savings account doing nothing when it could be out there earning more money for you. But at America First Credit Union, we can give your money a wake-up call.
What? What's that?
Rise and shine, Bucky. We can get your money working in a high-yield certificate account, earning you a much better return than traditional checking and savings. Up and at 'em, buddy. We gotta go.
Huh? Where are we going?
To America First. You'll love it there. They're gonna help you do so much awesome stuff.
All right, I'm coming.
So get your money working with a high-yield certificate from America First. Head to americafirst.com today to check out the latest amazing rates. Subject to membership, eligibility, terms, conditions, and change. Federally insured by NCUA.
The life of a small business owner. Keeping the lights on, calling all the shots. And then there's workplace accidents. 500-degree ovens, rusty nails. Danger lurks around every corner. Workplace accidents can happen, but there is an easy way to keep your employees covered. Talk to your agent about workers' comp coverage from PIE, or go to pieinsurance.com and get a quote. Safety first, then PIE Insurance. Individual rates, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to policy terms and conditions. Not available in all states and situations.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, hotel operators from southern Utah aren't so big on a bill to raise their room taxes to build a major league stadium in Salt Lake. Second, all the rain and snow in southern Utah still isn't enough to get water flowing over the falls at Gunlock State Park. And third, Utah's governor was part of a bipartisan group that met with President Biden today and who share his frustration over inaction in Congress. Right now, 52 degrees, partly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we round out the program today, we're going to stay with the conversation. If you missed the previous segment, we went through this conversation in terms of where we are in so much of our public dialogue and discourse, and we talked about going from this art society and culture that was rich and thick to entertainment. Entertainment went to distraction. Distraction turns to addiction. And if you're on your phone right now, you're experiencing all of that. You're no longer experiencing the art of great art or music or literature. You've gone to just a form of entertainment. Entertainment is giving way to this distraction, this need to be distracted. And then, of course, it's this addictive loop of the dopamine hit comes, so you just keep on doom scrolling through your social media, and it feeds itself. We talked about how that actually connects a dot in terms of this increased political nihilism in our country, that everybody just wants to burn it down, and that there are so many who are so caught in the need for chaos. There's a chaos addiction in the country, especially as it relates to our politics, and it's up to all of us to change the dynamic of that. And so as we roll into the weekend, I want to close out the show today by just stepping back a little bit and reminding all of us why we need to slow down, zoom out, check your resources at the door, and make sure we're getting to a full, honest, accurate, truth kind of conversation. There was a great piece in The Atlantic by Dara Horn talking about why it is and how could it possibly be possible that so many educated people in America can fall for a wide range of things, including anti-Semitic lies, and why those are happening at elite universities and elsewhere, as minds are captured in very unique ways. Interesting in the piece in The Atlantic, again, Dara Horn is the author, talked about, of course, what we all remember now in December, the congressional hearings on anti-Semitism at universities featured the presidents of Harvard and University of Pennsylvania and MIT, all trying to respond to a pretty simple question about whether or not calls for genocide of Jews would violate the university's policies. Only to have all three of those university, very smart presidents go into the mental gymnastics and Gordian knots of philosophy to get to, well, it depends on the context. And so interesting to me that all of these university presidents, at one point or another, are able to spew the platitudes of, hatred. Hatred's the problem, and hatred comes from ignorance. And that the answer to that ignorance and that hatred is education. And I think that's true to a degree. But it doesn't explain how you can have a whole lot of very educated people on a lot of America's college campuses be so duped and deceived on a wide range of things, including anti-Semitism. And so just education alone isn't the answer. It has to be more than that. And it requires all of us to be responsible for what we consume. And yes, you can say, well, I saw it came up in my social media feed, or I got an alert on my phone. And that's how it goes. And we just spend a segment of the show talking about how you're getting that and why you're getting that and what it's doing inside of your brain in terms of your dopamine hit that's getting you addicted to that kind of scrolling and that kind of chaos chasing. And so I just want everyone to just zoom out a little bit, because this has absolutely nothing to do with your political beliefs or philosophy or what political party you belong to, or what religious or non-religious organizations you belong to. But it all has to do with our personal responsibility in what we consume. We all look at labels before we eat different kinds of food. I think that's a pretty responsible thing to do. And I think we need to do the same kinds of things when we're consuming things on media, social media in particular. Because again, just being educated isn't enough. The fact that anti-Semitism can have a place on any college campus, let alone on some of the most elite college campuses in this country, is disturbing. How can that possibly be? Those are very smart people. Those are very educated people. And if hatred comes from ignorance, surely it shouldn't be on a college campus. If education is the answer to get rid of hatred and anger and fear and frustration and contempt, surely a college campus should be a great place. But if we're not checking what we're consuming, if we're just accepting what's coming up and then sharing it, by the way, because it's part of that dopamine hit, because it's not enough to just click on it and fall for the clickbait. You then have to share it with all of your friends and family. And you become a purveyor of the contempt and the chaos. And so I think the thing for all of us to think about as we roll into the weekend is when you see that crazy headline, just think again, get under the headline, look at it, check the source, look at the data. What is it telling you? If it sounds crazy and outrageous, it's probably crazy and outrageous. If it's not backed by some real science, not just somebody who's got a website or who's going to try to sell you a line of products off of it or get you to sign up for their newsletter so you can get more of that same kind of crazy, we have to be the ones that say no. We have to be the ones to not